Hello and welcome. My name is Melissa Johnson, and I am honored to serve as the moderator for the 2025 Board of Education Candidates Panel hosted by Westfield PTO. The Westfield PTO is dedicated to fostering a stimulating learning environment where students can reach their fullest potential through collaboration between parents, teachers, and community. Since the Board of Education plays a vital role in shaping our schools and their environments, we are providing this forum to help the community learn more about the candidates before casting their votes. On April 1st, voters will elect 3 members to 4-year positions on the D300 Board of Education, along with 1 member to a 2-year term. This shorter term will complete the remainder of a seat left vacant by a resignation. Because of the geographic size of D300's district, the Board of Education has a rule limiting board members to a maximum of 3 people from one township. The current board members who are not up for election represent Algonquin, Dundee, and Rutland Townships. Please check the video description for a list of candidates and their townships. It is important to note that the Westfield PTO does not endorse any candidate. The opinions expressed in this forum are solely those of the candidates and have not been reviewed, verified, or sanctioned by the PTO in any way. Based on community feedback, we have prepared 5 questions and provided them to the candidates in advance to allow for thoughtful response. Candidates will have 2 minutes to answer each question, as well as 1 minute for both their introduction and closing remarks. So you may go ahead, Christine.
Thank you so much for hosting this event so that the community can get to know the candidates for the D300 School Board. I'm Christine Birkett, and I'm seeking re-election for the Board of Education because I want to continue to be a passionate advocate for education and the needs of our D300 community. I'm a lifelong resident of the District 300 area, a graduate, as well as a parent and a current board member, and that's made me deeply care about our community. A single issue isn't driving my candidacy, but rather I'd like to set a wide range of goals and implement strategies and initiatives and policies that will secure the success of all of our students. I've been involved in the Master Facilities Plan as well as the Strategic Plan, and I'd like the opportunity to see some of that planning to fruition. While serving on the board, I've been a deeply invested board member, serving in many roles, and I think that prior experience that I have with curriculum, governance, school finance, policy, and safety will be beneficial as we work through any challenges that lie ahead for the district.
All right, Aaron, you may go, please.
Great. Thank you, and thank you again for having us. My name is Aaron Kelly, and I'm honored to be a candidate for the District 300 Board of Education. I've lived in Hampshire now for over 20 years, and in that time, I've been a dedicated community volunteer. Starting off volunteering for Hampshire Little League, that's now a part of Northwest Little League. And then I started to help out the youth, and I wanted to make a larger impact, so I joined or ran for and was elected to the Hampshire Township Park District, where I served for almost 9 years. I'm currently serving as a trustee for the Village of Hampshire, where I serve the entire community, and I serve as the budget chair, as well as a member of the Business Development Commission. I've been a member of the Public Relations Committee. I've been on multiple committees that have gone for grants to help improve the lives of the residents. I'm running today because my child's now in the District 300 programs, which has been a wonderful experience, and I'd like to take that dedication to volunteering to the D300 community.
Go ahead, Emmanuel.
Thanks for inviting me. My name is Emmanuel Thomas. The reason why I'm running for this position for re-election is to make an impact. Diversity is very important in the community, and I've had experiences personally with some students as well as parents that has concerns, and I've taken their concerns to the board and have helped implement policies to help these students out. I've been living in Illinois for about 14 years, 36 years of government service. I'm also a disabled veteran, so I'm very vested. I do some volunteer coaching. I mentor some young men at the Westfield Middle School. It's been an honor to do that. I'm very involved in the community, athletics, so thanks for inviting me again.
Go ahead, Patrick.
My name is Patrick Malia. Thank you again for hosting this and for inviting all of us. I live in Sleepy Hollow with my wife and 2 kids. I have 2 young elementary school kids. My involvement with the district first began in 2019 when my son started at Lacey. I kind of started following along with board meetings, seeing what was going on at the larger level. Became interested in it. When the opportunity came up in 2021 to join the Parent Advisory Council, I jumped at it. I'm one of the few people that served all 3 terms on the Parent Advisory Council. I learned a lot, worked in a collaborative environment, had some input on the current strategic plan, some board policies, things like that. I'm also a basketball coach. I coach my son's basketball team, and in the summer I'll be coaching my daughter's basketball team too. Involved in the community, I work with the Dundee Township Park District on the aquatics committee as well. So I'm pretty busy and I'm pretty involved in the community. Thank you again.
My name is Giannina Winkler, and I've been a resident of Dundee for about 10 years now. I have a lot of community involvement. I have a fleet of comfort therapy dogs, 7 dogs, that I take to VA hospitals, police stations, things like that. And then I also volunteer teaching senior citizens computer classes, so just computer literacy. I spend about 12 to 15 hours a week doing different volunteer things around the community because it's so important. And then I decided to run for school board. I'm the mom of 5, so my kids have been through the schools. And I just want to help out. I want to be a helpful parent. I have a PhD and I teach kids that go to college.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Hello, my name is Alisa Lindmark. Thank you so much for having us here today. I am a resident of Hampshire with my husband and our 2 children who attend D300 schools. I have a daughter who is a senior at Hampshire High School, who is an AP scholar as well as an Illinois State scholar, we just heard this week. And my son is in 8th grade at HMS in the Life 2 program. That being said, that is the reason I'm running. I would like to represent our diverse learners on the board. Currently there is, as far as I know, no one serving on the board that has a diverse learner, and I feel like they need representation, which is why I'm running. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Leslie Lamarca, and first I want to say thank you to the WCS PTO for having us here today. I'm a 30-year resident of School District 300 and have a deep history of being highly involved in the community in a myriad of ways. Everything from being a Girl Scout leader back in my day when my kids were young, to I served on the Northern Canaan Education Corporation, which is Cambridge Lakes Charter School. I served on their board for 6 years, and I also helped lead the D300 food pantry for 7 years, including a stint as 4 years as the pro bono executive director. I did serve as a member of the Board of Education. I was elected and served my term of 2019 through 2023. And I'm currently a member of the Board of Education as I was appointed in August of 2024. I have 2 children who are now both in college and they attended D300 schools. And I'm currently seeking election, uncontested, for the 2-year seat.
President Trump has expressed interest in disbanding the Federal Department of Education. How do you believe this would impact our district, and what changes do you think the district would need to implement in response?
Thank you for the question. So first, I think we need to understand that the president doesn't have the power to disband the Federal Department of Education. It was created through legislation, and so it will actually take an act of Congress to disband. And I think to the hope of many that right now there's no indication that Congress has any desire to disband the Department of Education. The good thing, I think we can be happy that things like Title IX and IDEA will still continue to be enforced. Now, with that said, what can happen? Funding can be severely cut. And when there's already talks about cutting funding to things like Title I, which our district does need and utilizes. We have schools that are considered Title I schools. In the last budget, District 300 received about $31 million in federal funds, and that accounted for about 8% of the total revenue of the school district budget. Now, that seems like a lot, but it's actually below the national average, which is good. So the district is fiscally responsible when they're coming through with where they're getting their different revenue. But if something catastrophic does happen, like losing all of the federal funds, none of it going to the states and then being redisseminated through the states, that impact would mean that the district's gonna have to figure out how to accommodate that 8 to 9% loss, and how to look at providing equitable access to education for those Title I schools, for those students in need, for those students that are a part of special programs. And that's going to be difficult conversations around prioritization, about making sure that staffing and resources are there, that we don't lose that those students aren't impacted. And so it's going to cause the 7-member board to really come together to collaborate and make some very tough decisions if that type of catastrophe were to happen.
I do agree that the president does not have the authority, that's Congress authority, but where it may affect our district, where there's Title IX protections. Some things that I did some research on is basically the transgenders, that the use of pronouns and the sexualities of some of those students may be affected. And you also have the minorities that may be affected with some of the policies that the president is going to roll out. The public schools gets roughly about 14% of the funding from the federal government. So I would say for our local district, what we need to look at is for those students that classifies as transgenders or even the LGBT communities, that we need to make sure that their protections are, that they are protected even with the cuts that the president is trying to implement. And I know we already working on some things. I've had a conversation with the superintendent, being a board member, that there's already some things that and policies in place that give those students those protections. But it's definitely going to be a task, because if we're losing that funding, then we have to get that money from other ways. And there is something that's in the works now. There's a solar project that we're working on now that's going to roughly save us about $400,000 a year. That if the board votes on this, that's some monies that extra monies that we're going to get by saving just the same electricity that we're using now in the district.
If the Department of Education were to be disbanded, we can't today know everything that's going to happen down the road. I think there's going to be effects that we can't really predict right now. One thing I do know is that our most vulnerable kids are going to be affected probably first. Those with IEPs. I'm one of 2 parents up here that has a student with an IEP. Both my kids started out at Alisa, and they were immediately given IEPs, both for speech issues and things like that. My daughter is doing great. She still has a little ways to go. So we are working with her to get her out of that, just in the event that anything were to be cut. I think we're gonna have to shift a lot of resources in order to compensate for any funding that is gonna be lost. A couple people already mentioned that the federal funding is not a substantial part of the district budget, but it is enough to where we are going to have to plan some things out and shift resources around to make sure that all of our students still receive the services that they need and get the quality education that we strive to provide for them.
So if the department is disbanded, we would really have to look at some of the funding that we do get for multilingual, special education, and Title I. Those are all extremely important programs that we get federal funding from. So at that point, we would have to talk to the state, see how funds could be reallocated to support those, and make sure that they continuously go on. We don't want any breaks from that, because they're such important programs to have. And I mean, everybody else said the same thing that I was gonna say. So I do echo what everybody else was saying. And it's just the importance of continuing those programs for our students.
If the Department of Education were to be defunded and, obviously, like Patrick said, there's a lot of unknowns. I work on a Department of Education grant, so obviously that is a big concern for me. Professionally, however, I also have a diverse learner. My son is intellectually disabled. He receives a lot of services at school, and those could be potentially cut. So as a parent, I have many concerns with the Department of Education being disbanded and returning to the states. If I may, like everyone else has said, it is about 9% of our funding for the district that comes from the federal government. If I may use the rest of my time to discuss the local real estate taxes, I would like to do that. There's been some candidates, or a candidate that has said that they pay 80% of their local real estate taxes to the school board, and that is not the case. I did some research, and everyone on this panel, with the exception of Mr. Thomas, thank you for your service, pays about 65 to 75% towards of their real estate taxes towards the district. Not to say that that isn't a lot of money, because it is. However, I've got my tax bill here, and I'll be very transparent with my tax bill. I paid $5,396.56 towards the school district in 2023. That's the latest one up. And if I was to pay back for everything that the school district has spent, it would take me about 34 and a half years to educate one child.
So first, I think it's really important that we all truly understand what the Department of Education actually does. Because I'll be really honest, even as a board member, a sitting board member, and somebody who served, before, I didn't have a ton of knowledge about what they actually do, everything that they do. So I think it's important that we truly understand what they do. And as a board member with tenure, the Department of Education is not something that we talk about. We're more focused on what's going on in our district, obviously. So what this Department of Education does, it oversees federal education funding and enforces civil rights laws in schools, and it collects data and sets policies that are meant to better national education. So you look at that as their mandate and you say, okay, as a district, if that is defunded and it goes away, how are we going to be most impacted? And clearly the answer you're going to come to right away is, oh my gosh, the funding. And you look at our district, 28 schools, 8 of them are Title I. What is a Title I school? A Title I school is where the majority of the population falls at or below the poverty line. And they receive special things like the free and reduced lunch program and other programming. So yes, this is something that will definitely impact us. And it'll impact special education programs, free and reduced lunch programs, and a myriad of other infrastructure and programming grants that we received. And there's really no pretty way to paint this, right? For those of us who have sat on the board and understand what it means to look at the budget and figure out where those funds are going to be allocated and cover so much that we're trying to do across our vast district, the best way for us to say it is that we have to look at those funds and our budget, and we have to come up with what I would call survival scenarios, right? How are we going to make this work? How are we not going to have to cut services, vital services, I would say, to our students and still make our budget work? And I do know that that is already happening. We're already looking at things and being proactive in that realm, so that's very good. I also feel that one of the other most important things that we can do if funding is cut and it impacts us specifically is communicate.
Leslie covered a lot of what I was going to say as a sitting board member. And I think we can all agree that although it would take an act of Congress to close the Department of Education, that will be difficult. Substantial changes are still expected, and the administration has already started to diminish the department by dismantling some key functions, stripping some funds, and cutting programs, reducing staff and policy changes that we're gonna feel even if they don't get rid of the department wholesale. And doing so will really destabilize public education, and I think that's the bigger issue here, is this narrative around closing the Department of Education is really a narrative around the value of public education. To me, and it's putting it at risk, and it's putting our most vulnerable students at risk as well, which I think is really sad. And it's, as a nation, we have a longstanding commitment to ensuring equal education opportunities for all students, and this whole movement will undermine that. I think it's being driven a lot by misconceptions about what the Department of Education does. And as Leslie laid out, a lot of what it does do, a lot of what it doesn't do too, which no one stated specifically, so I'll take my time to state that, is it doesn't tell us what students need to learn, and it doesn't tell teachers how to teach. That is the job of the state, that has been the job of the states, and it will continue to be the job of the states. As mentioned, we have 8 title schools. 46% of our D300 students are low income, so this will have a substantial effect. One thing that no one really mentioned, so I'll add to it too, of the jobs of the DOE is enforcing civil rights laws without having that department to oversee that in a robust way. That will bring that back to where parents will need to be able to have resources to help pursue some of those things, or the district will have to help really to ensure and step in and make sure that civil rights of our students are protected. Also, the department does a lot of funding for education research. That would be critical to lose because the states won't pick that up and do that themselves.
How do you think the district should address issues related to bullying, violence, and rhetoric, especially targeting racial, LGBTQ, or other marginalized communities? Emmanuel.
This is happening in the district every day. My granddaughter has personally experienced it. Personally. I have other parents that contact me about the racial comments. You have people in the community, the LGBT, I've been contacted by them as well. So this is a thing that is happening in the district that we have been addressing. I mean, we have different avenues that parents can reach out to and students. We have on our website, you have a link that you can go and you can report it anonymously. You can also go talk to your dean, students. You can, as they do, reach out to the board members. So I had a parent reach out to me today, just before I came here, about a situation that happened at one of the schools. And I'm going to address that issue tomorrow with the dean. So we have to continuously, it's something that's going to happen. Social media has made it a lot worse. I mean, when I was coming up, we just had a telephone that you had to put money in. So you didn't have those issues. You didn't. But nowadays, I was sharing with my granddaughter today that social media allows it to spread very rapidly, no matter where you at. You can be in Illinois, you can hear about it in Michigan within a matter of seconds. So the district is doing a good job at it. I know it's a work in progress. I do know that the superintendent, when those issues come up, she do address them. She keeps the board informed of issues that happens with these type of concerns. So, like I said, we just got to continue. Parent has to be involved. Parent involvement is very important. The student has not to be afraid, as they would say, snitching. It's not snitching if there's a concern or an issue with one of your friends or something you've heard from someone. So it's very important to just keep it out there in the forefront and to let those bullies and those racial people know that we're not going to allow it in our district.
Thank you.
I have to kind of piggyback off what Emmanuel just said, that bullying is an issue right now. It is occurring. My daughter's being bullied at school right now. She's having a terrible time. There are good reporting practices in place, and I appreciate that because I've actually shared it with other parents who are experiencing the same thing right now. It's not just her, there's a few other kids in her grade that are being affected by it, even a couple kids in my son's grade that are being affected by it. So I've talked to parents, I've shared how you can report it to the district. This is who you need to talk to get it addressed. If you're not getting the response that you need from the school, obviously you want to start first up and work your way up the chain of communication. It's really important that we have parental involvement because that is what's going to stop this from occurring. I can tell you as a parent who is dealing with this right now, 5 days a week when she comes home from school, it's really, really difficult. And so I understand what other parents are going through experiencing this right now. It's not, my daughter's case is not an issue of racial bullying or anything like that. It's really taking a toll on her though. So I can only imagine how hard it would be on her if it were because of that. It is extremely difficult to navigate. And as a parent, I don't always know what to do about it either. I struggle with this all the time. My wife works nights. I'm the one that's home with the kids in the evening. So I'm the one that has to take this on by myself most of the time. And it's overwhelming. It really is. So I completely understand what other parents are experiencing with this. And I know that we do a good job of bullying prevention and addressing bullying issues. But I think in some instances, we can do better and we should work harder to alleviate these issues.
Okay, this is a an issue that's very near and dear to my heart. I come from a very large family. I have 10 brothers. I'm the only girl. And when me and some of my brothers were in middle school, we were relentlessly bullied for being poor. And I can tell you firsthand, it's isolating, it hurts, and it's embarrassing. And I know I didn't come forward with it. I just kind of dealt with it in school. And now seeing the kids today, they have so many other avenues of bullying. They can bully online, and they can be vicious. And it's terrible for kids that are going through it. So I think that we really need to create a network of support for them. And District 300 schools are doing a really good job trying to address it. I visited the school. My son went to Hampshire, and there were signs all over talking about if you see bullying, report it. But we need to get parents involved, trusted adults, peers, and maybe even some additional training on how to recognize a kid that's being bullied, that kid that won't come forward and talk about it. So as a community, a school community, we can really work to combat this because it's not fair what it does to kids. It can impact their learning, their home life, everything. So it's an issue that we really just have to keep working on.
As a parent of a special needs child, I have dealt with bullying for the past 9 years we've been in this district. And I just have to say that I do think we're making progress. I have been very angry in the past about what my kids have been subjected to at the school. My own son will not use the bathroom in public now because of what has happened to him at school. He holds it all day long. And so when you're holding that in all day and then you get to your safe space, I'm sure you can only imagine what my husband and I have to deal with every evening. That being said, I struggle with this because I see why we need, I'm not a fan of SB 100, but I see why we need it. Because in the past, people were targeted for their race, and they were expelled for just being, a certain color. And so I understand the restorative practices, but I think what we've done now is we've kind of made the bullies more protected than the kids being bullied. I spent an hour on the phone with a parent from Hampshire High School last night. There is an extremely serious racial situation going on there. I'm not going to speak any more about it than that because the law has gotten involved, but it's terrifying. This woman's scared to send her kids to school, and I can relate to that. I have been scared to send my son to school. When we talk about educating the whole child, they say, we need children to arrive ready to learn. And when a kid is being bullied at school, they are not learning anything. They are terrified. Everything that they are being taught is in one ear and out the other. They cannot concentrate. So if we want to talk about test scores, let's work on bullying.
I think we can all acknowledge that this is an ongoing, very serious and often heartbreaking issue that is occurring. D300 does have some very solid policies and strategies in place to address these issues. And I do have confidence in our staff to be diligent and enforce these policies and strategies. However, that said, our district is vast and it's vastly diverse. And while we have practices in place to handle issues as they arise, we have to focus on stopping this sort of behavior before it starts. We must intrinsically continue to build a culture of acceptance and tolerance. And of course, I feel strongly that as a district, we have a huge responsibility in that realm. But I also feel strongly that the largest part of that responsibility and the teaching of compassion, tolerance, and acceptance comes from the parents and guardians of the students. Children need to be equipped with that mindset when they walk through our D300 schools. And they also, that mindset needs to be vigorously supported and enhanced by their academic experience. Those things have to happen together, or these are going to be problems that boards, years and years in advance, are going to be dealing with, and the consequences are going to get more and more serious.
I agree with what everyone said. It's a problem. It's a problem that I think we're doing our best to face and it does keep changing. And it's bullying is something that we should not tolerate. We should do everything in our power to try and prevent. I think a lot of that is trying to address the root cause, creating a culture in our schools of acceptance, because when people, and where students feel heard too, I think sometimes when bad behaviors are happening, it's maybe even out of a sense of frustration. So I've been doing some reading about like, well, what can we do? What can we do to make this better? And a lot of people think that one thing that we can do is really allow students to help take a leadership role in creating this culture in their schools, because when they're invested in the solution works. So we should allow them to kind of lead some of that work with anti-bullying campaigns in their own schools. I also agree that parents play a role too. We set the tone in our homes of how to treat others. And so I think Westfield had an event, actually, a family event a few weeks ago about bullying and cyber awareness. And I think if we can go and get into our schools, we've held some of these at the district level and they're just not well attended. So I think part of the solution is going to be working with administration to come into the schools where people actually are, like into the actual school community, to work on, informing parents about like good practices for social media, how to make sure that your kid is being digitally responsible with their technology, and just create more of a culture within each of our schools that addresses the needs so we can stop this from happening. A bit of bright news is we do a belonging survey, and most of our students feel they do have a trusted adult in our buildings, which is huge. And I think even just knowing that that's something that students should expect when they walk through our doors is really critical, because then you're mindful of that. Do I feel when I have someone at school who I can come to with a problem? Wow.
For me, there's zero tolerance for bullying. There's zero tolerance for violence, and zero tolerance for rhetoric when it's hate speech and it's discriminatory and it's a form of bullying. I think it was said earlier, I know it was said earlier, I think all of us probably have faced this. The difference is now kids can't leave this. With cyberbullying, it now follows them home. And so what used to be a safe place to go back to, you feel like you're still left into it. So for me with the district, I agree with what one candidate said earlier, there are good policies in place to address bullying. However, I think that for those that do experience it, or the families that I've talked to that their children have experienced bullying, often those policies do feel like they're giving the person who is doing the bullying more support than the person who has gotten bullied. And that can be very frustrating. Imagine having somebody bully you and you still go to school every day and you're not seeing any type of consequence for that person's action. Now, we all want to ensure student privacy and family privacy, and I'm not saying we need to share what is happening with individual students, but it should be known to the student body and to the parents that this type of behavior is unacceptable. And the district should stand by their teachers, and I think they do a good job, and their administrators, and themselves as a board to stand up and say, there is no right reason to do this, and we're going to do what we can to ensure that this doesn't continue in our district, and we're going to address it, whether it's at the root cause level and trying to improve more inclusive environments within our schools, or to just make it known that if you do this, there are consequences to your actions, and those consequences will be upheld.
District 300 serves a diverse student population, including students with disabilities, IEPs, low-income backgrounds, multilingual learners, and various cultural backgrounds. As a board member, how would you ensure that every student continues to receive a high-quality education?
Our most fundamental mission as a school district is to provide all students with high-quality education regardless of their backgrounds. I have a daughter with an IEP, so I understand the challenges and everything that goes involved with that. I come from a low-income background, so I've been on that side of things also. We have to continue to provide all the services and all the benefits that we have right now for all these students, because it is our job to educate all these kids to the best of our ability. We are in the business of teaching all kids that live within our district and they come to our schools, and we have to give them the resources that they need to be successful academically. I know the hot topic is always test scores, and we have to make sure that in order to get our test scores where we want them to be, our students have to have what they need in order to be successful academically. Somebody mentioned earlier about not being able to learn in school because of issues in the classroom and things like that. That applies to a broader spectrum of our student body as well, and we have to continue to provide everything that our students need in order to be successful, which is the mission of our district and my own personal mission as well.
So the diversity in our schools is really what makes them beautiful. We really have a good mix of students that go to our schools. And every single school, every single student that comes into the school has to have the same opportunity. They have to have the same chance to get a quality education out of District 300. We need to keep the focus on special ed to help the kids that need the help. The kids that are English learners, they would benefit by having additional aids, maybe bilingual aids in the class, just helping them, giving them that extra boost to bring them up. Because one of the struggles that some of the teachers have is they might have a big class load and not be able to give that individual attention to those students. So I think it would be game-changing to have additional aids. Also, our low-income students, they should never, not just because of income, not be able to afford the same thing, the same education. So we need to have the resources available for them, not only to learn, but to have a healthy breakfast and lunch for school. Every single student, we owe that to them.
Go ahead, Lisa.
So as I've said several times, I have a special needs son, and so this community is very important to me. And the reason I'm running, these kids are the reason I'm running. I have watched many board meetings, and I watch the programs that are being put on for transitioning from middle school to freshman year. My son's going to be a freshman next year, and they do these transition nights. And as a parent of a special needs child, I see that they're not really geared towards our children. They're geared towards the typically developing kids, which is great. However, how are our kids feeling like they're represented and involved in this community? It seems very like we're doing inclusion, but we're just kind of including them. They're there. They're not really part of the community. So, as far as marginalized people go, I have been advocating for marginalized people for the last 4 or 5 years, very vocally in this district. And I've gotten the reputation of being a pretty fierce advocate where my child is concerned. I will continue to do that for my child, but the only way I can do it for yours is if you vote for me on April 1st. So I'm going to continue to fight. I've said many times I wouldn't change my son for the world, but I'm going to continue to try to change the world for my son. Thank you.
The diversity of our district, while it certainly presents its challenges, is also our strength. Within District 300, our students are not just learning to function in society, they're learning how to thrive due to the rich community that we have in diversity in all areas. The Board of Education has many goals. The overarching goal of the Board of Education is to make sure quality education is accessible to every one of our students. However, it is imperative that individual board members do not see themselves as a singular force in achieving this goal. The strength of a board is what we are able to do together. Board members work together and with the persons we have entrusted with our highest administrative roles to assure that our collective goals are met. A responsible, highly engaged board member will do their part by staying up to date on internal communications, reading the emails and things that are sent to us internally to review before each meeting, staying current on local, state, and federal happenings within the education realm, and also asking questions. This is one I cannot stress enough. Board members should definitely be asking questions, as should constituents, but as a board member, it's your responsibility to ask questions without being afraid to challenge and or disagree respectfully. So if you have a board of 7 members that are doing this and being, again, highly engaged in these ways, you're going to achieve your goal of providing education, quality education for all of the students.
Yes, I think that's critical that we acknowledge that we are from a very large and diverse community when we're making decisions as a board. It would be horrible if we didn't try and think of the big picture as we're looking at our district and making decisions. As a board member, if I was reelected, I would continue to advocate for initiatives that support the diverse needs of our students and cultivate a sense of belonging in our schools. Because again, I think, there's currently this debate about like, well, should we just teach subjects, or, and how important is it for people's feelings to be addressed? And I think you have to have the two of them to go together if we want real true success for our students. When our students feel safe, accepted, and valued, they thrive both emotionally and academically. They're linked. As a board member, I try and go to as many community engagement meetings as possible, because I think that's where I can really hear the impact that our decisions are making at the high up level as they filter down for our families and our students. So I try and attend, literally any of them so I can hear as much as I can about people's individual experiences. I think also as board members, we have to support the strategic vision and the goals that we set forth for the district, which address a lot of how we're going to get to this quality education. As well, we should make sure that we hold our administration accountable to continue to evaluate our programs, our initiatives, our curriculums for their educational return on investment, to make sure that we're putting our resources in the right places to benefit our students in their education. Again, I'll bring up my thing that I think is a little different. I really do think student voice is super important in this too. Like, we can talk as parents all we want and talk to teachers all we want about what we think our students need, but it really is important also to ask them, what do you need to be successful in your education? So I'm a big advocate for trying to figure out a way to increase student voice, whether that be a board representative, a non-voting representative of a student on the board, or through committees in our schools where we can get that feedback from our students.
I agree with what was said earlier. The primary job of the public school district is to ensure equal opportunity to a top level education. But I also believe it's important that the district provide it in an equitable manner, where not all things are always equal. And what I mean by that is, in the question itself, we talk about those students that may need extra help. We've talked about students that have IEPs and students that are part of special education programs, or students part of populations like English language learners that need extra help, and they should be given that in the district. And I believe needs to look at things through providing equitable distribution of these resources. So what does that mean exactly? Well, as a board member, I would work with the board. I agree wholeheartedly with Ms. Lamarca that a board does its best work when it works collaboratively and it asks questions of one another and it has diverse thought and diverse questions on there. And when we do that, we can come together to determine what are those vital services that need to be continued. What are the things that we need to add to that? When we look at the report cards, the Illinois State report card, just one of the measures, how we're doing as a school or as a school district, we're actually seeing the disparity between those marginalized communities we've talked about and non-marginalized communities getting wider. And the proficiencies are actually widening or getting deeper between the two, whether it's non-IEP and IEP, or no low income and low income, white and Hispanic, white and black. You're seeing the disparity growing in a time when the investment shows that it should be getting closer and we should be hopefully making a difference. I'd love to work with the board to see how can we do better in those areas, how can we provide those much needed resources that have been talked about in a way that gives those students who need the extra help.
In order for the board to provide the guidance and assistance, the board has to be diverse. That's the first thing. I was the first African-American male that was elected to the board, since I can go back throughout. I went back several years. So Reason why I ran was because of that. When students see individuals that look like them, they perform better. When I go out to the community, the two gentlemen that I mentor in Westfield, when I go and I shake their hands, they're excited because they see someone that looks like them. My wife actually works for Circle Friends. When those African-American students see her, they are excited because we talk about community. That's what community is about. We have to represent the community. For the record, my granddaughter is autistic, so she has an IEP. She goes to DeLacy. So when I go there, I reflect that community. In low income, African Americans and minorities don't want to be saved. They want to be heard and understood. So when teachers know how to understand them and not try to save them, that makes it a lot better for that student to learn. And I think the teachers need to understand that, the board needs to understand that. It's not about saving students from themselves, it's about giving them what they need. And whether they have an IEP, or they're low income, if they're a multiple learner, or if they have a cultural background. Because we know different schools and different areas have different type of cultural backgrounds. We know, Hampshire is different from, Jacob's different from Dundee High School. So it depends on where you at. It's important for the board to understand that, to continue to value that need, and to have a diverse board. Thank you.
Do you have any concerns about current D300 staffing? What as a board member can you do to retain experienced and highly skilled staff?
Okay. I think we have great teachers in D300. We do. But retaining highly skilled educators is essential to student success. Key factors influencing retention include competitive salaries, great benefit packages, manageable workloads, and a positive work environment. As a board member, I would support policies that enhance professional development opportunities, provide mentorship programs for new teachers, and encourage a culture of respect and collaboration. I think additionally, classroom aides, it's cost effective to add classroom aides. And like I said before, well, when I was knocking on doors, one of the biggest bits of feedback I got was, oh, my kid needs extra help in math or in reading, or they're struggling here. And some of the teachers have huge classroom workloads, and they don't have the time to give that individual extra help. And yes, they can go home and bring home homework or do it at home, but it would be so much better to have that individualized care within the classroom to make sure that the kids are up to par with the rest of them. And I'm a huge advocate for aides in the classroom.
Thank you.
My main concern after speaking with some teachers recently is their morale. I actually did look at the most recently published strategic plan update, and our teachers' morale is not good. And what I'm hearing is they don't feel heard. They don't feel like they're getting the supports that they're asking for, and they don't feel heard by the administration. So, as a board member, and I've said this on my Facebook page, I'm gonna support the teachers because they are it, they are in the trenches with our kids. They're the reason our kids are successful. My daughter is an Illinois scholar. She wouldn't have gotten there on her own. Super smart, but if she hadn't had great teachers, she wouldn't have been able to realize the success. My son had amazing teachers and amazing therapists, and I can't thank them enough for everything. So as I'm running, to be an advocate for the kids, I'm also running to be an advocate for the teachers. I want to support the teachers. I'm going to support the policies that support them, and I'm going to be available. I put it out there. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you want. I don't want to hear from others what they think you want. I want to hear from the teachers what's going on. I started showing up at board meetings during COVID because I was upset by the way some parents were behaving towards our educators. I watched my son's teacher kill it during COVID. And I'm so grateful that I got to be a fly on the wall during that time because it gave me a great, look behind the curtain. So.
All right, of course I want D300 to continue to have the best teachers and the best educators in education adjacent roles. We already do, so how do we maintain that? To do this, we have to obviously stay competitive salary-wise, but there's so much more to it than paying a competitive salary and providing a comprehensive benefits package. I feel really blessed personally because I have many people in my family that are educators or again education adjacent, and many, many friends in this profession. And in talking to them, what I figured out and learned over the years of friendship and companionship with them is that teachers, like most people and most employees and staff, need to feel empowered, appreciated, and heard. And in partnership with our unions, I actually believe that our current administration is doing a pretty good job of this. And I'll even go as far as saying I think that this current administration is doing a better job of this than I've seen in my personal tenure as a board member in District 300. And again, this is based on my perspective, which I acknowledge is limited. To attract new talent, District 300 has to be seen widely as a premier district to go and work for. And again, there's much more to this than just what we're paying salary-wise. We have to have an organizational culture deeply and truly supportive of teachers and staff. And again, from what I see, I believe we are on the right path here, but in a district our size, employing this many people, there's always going to be work to do and ways to improve. It's going to be a constant effort moving forward, but it's something I think that we are able to do.
Thank you.
I like everyone else, I'm concerned about retaining and finding staff for our students. They're our most valuable resource. They're with our children more than we are during the course of the day. They play a tremendous role in shaping who they're going to be in the future and their future successes. That being said, it is increasingly hard. There are shortages that we're dealing with, specifically for some of the support services. We're trying our best to find people. There just aren't people out there. People are leaving the profession. School social workers, school psychologists, I was just at a presentation. We're like 50% statewide. This is not just a D300 thing. We're at like 50% of the number that we should have. And they were saying that, I don't remember which category, between the state of Wisconsin and the state of Illinois, only 102 people are going to graduate with that degree this coming year. So the pool is incredibly, incredibly small. That's not to say we shouldn't do everything we can to still say this is the best place for you to come and invest your career. And I agree with others who have said that that's creating a culture where our teachers feel valued, heard, supported. What can we do to add to that in our district? I think we need to show that we're willing to promote from within for key roles if people are qualified and want to move up in their role. Let's do that for them. I know we've got some cool programs where we'll take people who do not have certain certifications and support them. We've done a pilot program to support them to get the next certification that they need to be able to move up and stay with our district. It's like an investment on their part and our part to keep them here. We also do some promotions where we're trying to protect graduates to come back and teach in our district. So giving our students a great experience if they go into education, they're more likely to want to come back and teach here as well. Again, as everyone said, good compensation is just part of the picture here. And again, I think as others have said as well, just creating a culture where educators feel respected in their role, it's because they should be.
So I agree with a lot of what was said, especially when we're talking about ensuring that teachers, educators, certified staff, education adjacent, that they feel heard and valued and supported in their role. The reason why people leave jobs in education or elsewhere is usually because they don't feel valued or they don't feel that their leadership has their back. And I think there's an opportunity. Earlier it was stated that the morale of the teachers are low. that the feedback that person is receiving is that the teachers aren't happy. Okay, well, now we need to listen to why they're not happy and truly hear what it is, and maybe take a self or a reflective look and say, are we not doing what we need to do to bring morale up? Because not only are there current shortages in the teachers, open positions in the district, the more teachers that lose, the exponential that problem becomes, right? The more exponential that problem becomes. So you need to make sure that you focus on retaining a lot of that staff. You're gonna have to continue to recruit new staff. You're gonna have to find those unique ways to bring people in. When you have smaller pools entering education, how do you differentiate yourself as a district? This has to be a place that people want to come to work. And they do that if they feel like they're going to be supported. Now, I've shared before, I spoke with a fantastic teacher, one of my son's teachers. We talk about classrooms being large when there's 20, 24, 26 students. She has 1,000 students. She covers 2 schools and does the only subject for that. And she's great. And she partners with somebody else that helps her out through the process. She's a fantastic teacher, but how do you build the relationship with the student? And so how can the district help people like her that are fantastic teachers and educators get resources they need so that they can focus more and make that impact on the students that we know teachers?
Experienced teachers is phenomenal in this district. You know, a lot of them do a great job. I mean, I've heard one candidate says that teachers are upset. My question is, are they upset because they're being challenged? Are they upset because they've been made to do their job? Because we know that in leadership positions, when you hold people accountable, they are angry. Because accountability has a lot to do with educating our children. So if you're not doing your job, then yeah, you probably would be uncomfortable, you know, but you need to get up to what's needed. We talk about how the experience. If you have the experience and you have the skill, then you need to do the job. So I think that's important. Teacher retention is important. One candidate speaks about reaching out to the teachers. The only job of the board is to employ the superintendent. You should not be reaching out to teachers. That's the superintendent's job. Now, if you have any concerns, you can bring it up to the board president. There's channels that you can do, and you'll learn that through the governance class. But when we start, we call it getting in the weeds. When you start getting in the weeds and you have too many people talking to too many people, then it kind of, as a leader, it kind of diminishes your authority. Because if people feel they can just run up to you and not go through leadership, that becomes a problem. But they should have a voice. Teachers definitely should have a voice. They should voice their concerns. And if there is a true concern, then it should be addressed. You have to retain them and do salary, wages, and making sure that they are happy where they're working.
This was actually one of the topics we talked about one of the years I was on the Parent Advisory Council. And we had a great discussion in the group I was in. And when I found out there was no one-size-fits-all answer. I agree that teachers need extra help. My kids' classes are pretty large at this point, and an extra teacher's aide in there could help. I also agree that teachers don't feel like they're being heard right now. They are don't always have the best channels to communicate issues through to get them to the higher ups that need to hear them. Surveys only go so far in terms of communicating those issues. But I do agree that we want to be seen as one of the premier districts in our area to attract teachers and retain teachers. It is much larger than a compensation package. Every district offers a substantial compensation package that, in order to attract the best teachers, but we have to do more than that. It has to be an organizational concept from the bottom, from the top down. Everybody has to be on the same page in engaging with the challenges that teachers are experiencing in their daily struggles. I know I've heard people say that certain teachers have 1,000 students. Those are usually specialty teachers that cover multiple schools. And it is difficult for them, but they really strive to learn their students what they need and how to support them. And they don't see all those kids every day. I'm sure a lot of them would love to, because I hear that from them, and just talking to the teachers at my kids' school, they would love to see these kids every day. But it's just not how it's structured. And they do change positions, they do help out in other buildings, and it gives them a chance to affect more of our students' lives, which is what they're ultimately here for.
What specific policies do you support or oppose regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion in education?
The easy answer is all of them. I support every single policy that supports diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't understand why it's such a hot topic right now. Diversity is a fact. We've said it, all of us have said it. One question is based on the diversity of our student body and our community. So it's a fact. So you're not gonna get rid of diversity. Equity is a choice. We have a choice on whether we provide an equitable education to these children or not. It's my choice that we do. And inclusion is the result of the first two. So, you know, I'm gonna support anything that's DEI, and I'm gonna go a step further, and I'm gonna support anything that's social emotional learning. You know, when we go back to the bullying for a second, they showed the bully movie last year, or maybe the year before, at Hampshire Middle School, and I watched as parents, you know, jumped on the community page, and when are they showing that movie, so that they could pull their kids from watching the bullying movie. I cannot understand why anybody would not want their child to have empathy for another human being. And that is the only thing that movie taught me, was that there's other people out there to have empathy, to feel sorry that these children went through that experience in their own lives. So I don't understand why anyone in this district would want to pull their children from watching a movie about bullying, unless they're part of the problem.
Respectfully, I don't mean to be glib with my response to this question, but when it comes to DEI, I have to quote something I recently saw on social media, because it really sums up my feelings perfectly. My flappers are gasted. In other words, I'm simply flabbergasted. When and how did something meant to strengthen community through knowledge, acknowledgement, and a broadening of perspective turn into something that we can even fathom using the word oppose when we're talking about? Don't we all want our students and staff to feel safe, accepted, and comfortable in and out of our schools? I admittedly have a very difficult time grasping the thought that there are people who do not want or accept that baseline of humanity. That said, as with all organizations, large and small, policies, that's what the question is about, specifically policies. Policies must be regularly reviewed for two main reasons. The first one, are they still, to make sure that they're accomplishing what they are intentioned to accomplish. And the second, that they reflect the current culture and goals of the organization.
I share the same confusion, frustration, the misunderstanding. I don't understand why something that is meant to make everyone feel like they have a place and a purpose and a value is being attacked on the national level, but it is. I hear a lot of people say like they just hate DEI, but like no one can tell me specifically what they don't like about it, which I think it's just become this umbrella term that people are just not happy with anything that falls under it, and I don't agree. I think, as I've said earlier, students need to feel valued, accepted, all of those things in order to be able to succeed socially and academically. So we must keep doing these things to support our students. We are a diverse district. We have to acknowledge that and factor that into all the decisions that we make as board members to try and do the best for all of our students. I think, as Leslie mentioned, like there already are things in policy in place about this. However, I think we also need to make sure as board members that the practice is happening as well, that we are doing things that align with what we have in our policy. Policy is one thing, but what are we implementing? And so I think as board members, that's part of our job, is to make sure that we're holding administration accountable to actually doing things towards diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility for our students. What else to say about it? I mean, I think there are little things we can do to help. You know, for example, playgrounds have come up. Under our new administration, we recognized that that wasn't the most equitable practice, how we were handling our playgrounds. We changed it. Now we have a base model for how all of our playgrounds are going to be constructed as they're redone, so that all the schools, our students will have a similar learning experience, or a similar recess experience when they're out playing on the playgrounds. So that's an example of where, like, yes, we have this policy that we're going to do this, but now here's how we can practice what we're preaching.
It's interesting to me when you see the national conversation of what's happening around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and assumptions that are being made of what's happening within the schools or not within the schools. And, you know, I think it's important, especially when we talk about this question, when we're talking about it with District 300, that we look at what really is happening within the schools. And when you ask the question of what do you support versus what do you oppose, I've gone through the policies, I have them in front of me, that deal directly with equitable education, that deal directly with the students' rights. And it is not what you hear about on these national networks that's polarizing people on both sides of the argument. We're talking about things like having a Title IX grievance procedure, having equal educational opportunities for everyone, making sure that students can have appearance that represents who they are and their culture without fear of not being allowed to be themselves. These are things that we should want for all of our students. These are things that we should encourage in our schools, and that we should encourage our own children to learn more about and to ask questions of their students and to become more inclusive about that. I really think that there's a lot of misconceptions about what these broader topics that are being thrown out are and what really is happening within District 300 specifically. And you know, I don't know that I'm not opposed to anything that I'm seeing in District 300 that promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think it's a good thing, and I hope that to the other response that was said, I hope that our administration continues to ensure that these are upheld and that the practices follow the policies and the vision that the board has set forth.
This actually, I'm gonna read it, it comes from the District 300 website as a mission statement. As a district, we are committed to creating greater equality and inclusion for all students. This means working to honor and support our students through various activities that include a focus on gender equality, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, socioeconomic status, and race. As a school board, we remain focused and enrich our students academically, socially, emotionally. In addition, we are renewed focus on supporting the rights of individuals, freedoms of all students regardless of their race, gender, religion, sex, orientation. So saying that is, we just have to continuously follow the policies that we established. It's important for the board members to, when you get reelected or elected, to get involved. Go to the schools, go talk to the students. I know the superintendent, she's out there weekly going to different schools, participate. Being a board member is not just sitting in meetings. You have to get involved, see what's going on out there. And then you can see, okay, firsthand, if the policies are effective, if they're not effective. If what we're saying in our mission statements, if we're saying what's on the websites is actually what we're doing. So I think that's very important.
I'm with the other candidates where I'm not really sure what the big issue with these policies is at a national level. I feel like it's a real hot button topic right now, and it's difficult to navigate these types of issues when they come up in terms of I strongly oppose this or I'm strongly for it. My short answer to which policies do I support is all of them. I'm for this. Our fundamental mission is to give all of our students the best possible education regardless of where they come from, their racial background, ethnic background, socioeconomic status. That's what we're here for all of the students. And these policies that are in place to help all of our students become, better learners, we're here to support them, everything. We're not going to see an increase in our test scores or academic performance by getting rid of these policies. We're only going to see them improve by having these policies in place, which is why I support them. Somebody mentioned earlier that the disparities are growing between different groups of students. This is how we narrow those disparities down, is by having these policies in place, which is why I'm such a strong supporter of them. And that's it.
Thank you.
So I absolutely agree with Aaron and Emmanuel on what they said. I don't see any policy that I oppose when it comes to DEI with District 300. I think we focus on the children. We focus on quality education, on academic excellence, school safety. These are our focuses, and I don't see any policy that I disagree with. I think it's more important that we're teaching kids from a very young age, from kindergarten. We're teaching them that we live in a diverse world, that there should be inclusion. We need to teach them this to create a culture that they grow with and that they bring into the professional world once they leave school. Just nurturing that same thought process, and just it's the right thing to do. We treat people as our equals. We don't rip people down. There is inclusion, there's diversity within our world, and I think those are the messages that we have to nurture our children with. And as they grow and become adults, they're going to bring it into the world with them. And that's about it.
Thank you.
With everything that divides us today, it is my hope that public education can bring us together. I believe, as a baseline, we can all agree that every child has a right to quality, highly accessible, and comprehensive education. I'm very excited and honored to hopefully serve D300 again and know that my experience, commitment, and compassion will be a benefit as together we continue to move our district forward. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you again for the opportunity as well. I've really enjoyed my time that I've spent on the board. I've learned a lot about all the facets of our district. I've built connections with our community that have been really valuable to me, and I really would like the opportunity to continue to serve as another term on the D300 board to better the district for all of our students.
Well, thank you for your time today and for listening to all of our responses to these questions and submitting the questions. I think one thing that you'll find that we all have in common is we all have a passion for public school education. We're all doing this for what we believe to be the right reasons. And we have a lot of commonalities. You've heard a lot more in common than you have in difference, and that's important. You know, I'm running to represent not just the Hampshire community, but also the broader D300 community to ensure that we're driving student success, but also to ensure that on a board we have diversity of thought, we have diversity of board members, that we're able to challenge one another. We heard that importance earlier. And so I ask for your vote on April 1st to help make sure that we have a board that can come together, really challenge one another, but come with great programs for our students to make District 300 one of the best in the country. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me out and participating with this meeting. Coming from a diverse background, I believe that the district should have diversity, which we are, and diversity should reflect on our board. Being the only African-American male, like I said, when students see me, they can relate to me. I think that's very important. You know, when the board members are involved in the community, that's very important. And I've met so many parents since I've been on the board. And thanks to the ones that voted for me 4 years ago, I'm looking for your vote and for more votes. I am a board member for all people, not just Democrats, but Republicans, all people, because I represent all students. Thank you.
Thank you again for hosting this. It's been a good conversation, I think, amongst all of us. I've been involved with the district for the last 6 years in numerous positions and things like that. I've cherished every minute of it. This has been a lot of work that I've done, and I really have enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the collaborative environment and working with other parents, staff, getting to know people throughout the community. I'm looking forward, hoping to take the next step in becoming a board member and navigating the challenges that we're going to face on the horizon, whatever they may be.
So children are our most valuable resource. I have 5, and their education is everything. They're the future leaders of our country. They're our future teachers. We have a huge investment in them. And if I'm elected for the school board, I will do everything that I can to help to make sure that their education is top quality and that we're doing everything we can to help them succeed. And thank you so much.
Like others have said, thank you again for having us out today. It was a great conversation and I really enjoyed my time here today. I'm running to represent all students and that's what I want to do. I want to sit up there and represent our students. I think D300 is great. My children are receiving a wonderful education here, and I have been very involved and very outspoken in the district, and this is just the next step for me, is sitting on the board. So, you know, as I said earlier, I'm going to advocate for my kids. I'm a fierce advocate for my kids, and I will continue to be, but the only way that I can advocate for yours is if you elect me on the 1st. So I hope you get out and vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you all for participating in this forum, and a special thanks to the Algonquin Library for allowing us to use this space. Just to reiterate, Westfield PTO does not endorse any candidate. The opinions expressed in this forum are solely those of the candidates and have not been reviewed, verified, or sanctioned by the PTO in any way. We hope this video has helped inform your choices as you vote before or on April 1st. Thank you.